All right, what's up, everybody? So, we've always been told that we need to, uh, one of the biggest problems is that guys do not know where to go after they get out, right? Especially being in aviation maintenance. They don't know what opportunities are out there, they don't know what credentials they need to get, what will set them up for success. So, what I've been doing lately, the last year or so, is talking to employers, talking to other veterans who got out, and hearing their stories. Just last week, I was talking to a company about how to get their technicians their AMP, and they don't even know the process, even though they've gone through the process themselves, but they don't know themselves like how to go through that process. They don't remember, right? So I went in there helping them out on what is needed for them to get their AMP, right? So, what a lot of, uh, so first of all, is do you need an AMP to continue your aviation maintenance career? And the answer is you don't really need it. But, and then it really depends on where you want to go. So, a lot of these defense contractors, like, N1 Services or DynCorp or Momentum, where they work on the same aircraft that you probably worked on, or working on certain services that they might, you know, have contracts with the government when, let's set this up real quick, when they were just out deployed, right? So this is what some of these contractors can do, right? The civilian side that you might see around on base. And these guys make some good money. And so that's one place you can go to. You work on these same aircraft, build yourself up from there. And but if you don't want to be in the defense sector, I would highly recommend getting your AMP. And can you still get a job without it? Yes, you can. But again, if if you're in the lower, you're gonna start pretty low ranks in the company, and but then you're going to be realizing that you're going to be doing the same job as an AMP. And the AMP is going to come by, check your work, and sign you off, which the companies will love you to do that, right? So the biggest thing that I learned in my conversations with these companies lately, and as I go into these 147 schools and I meet veterans already going to these programs, some of them are going for the degree, and that's awesome. And some of them are in these schools because they want to get their GI Bill. That's one method, right? To go through the whole process, learn of everything about, aircraft and stuff like that. But if you're the type who wants to just get their AMP and get to work, like most of those guys are, and I've met so many veterans who, really don't need to even attend school. Um, because the 147 school told them that this is the way to do it. Well, there's another method. Okay, I'm not saying those practices are wrong. I mean, it's hopefully you guys who are in 147 schools are telling them, hey, here's another road, here's another option. Okay, just like I have a prep school, I'm going to tell you another way. Go to 147 schools if you want to learn and teach them. If you want to learn, if the student wants to learn a little more in depth, a little more in detail, or he's pursuing a certain industry, like for example, aviation. But if you're just trying to get your AMP and get going, you can get your experience. You can use your experience and and get sign-offs from the FAA. And that was one of the things that these guys didn't know how to do is how can I use my experience and then go into the civilian side. So you can use no shit uh, your military experience. Go to the FAA. They'll give you your authorization forms to test, and you can test. Now there's programs, fast track programs that you can sit in for 2 weeks and knock it out. And then there's other programs where um, you can do it online. It can be free. It can be, or you can go through the FAA route, and they have materials on there too. Study those materials and knock it out. If you're still in the military, there is A&P program, and it's free. You just jump on that, and you can knock it out. But it's, everybody has their ways of the presentation, and as created by awesome guys. I met the guys who created some of these programs in the Air Force, especially, and they teach you how to go about it, right? Which I've learned quite a bit from them on how to adapt. All right, so if you are still in the military, you can, and that's free. That program is free, and it's a great way to do it, right? And then there's other ways where they just teach you the test. Um, some people kind of frown upon teaching the test, but this, to me, the way I think about it is that yes, we are teaching you the test, how to get there efficiently, how to get there, because it's a shortcut. And guys, who doesn't like a shortcut, right? So we're teaching you how to get your A&P the fastest possible. And because if you're a military guy or if you have experience, you already know how a lot of the theories of the aircraft systems work, right? Because you have hands-on experience, right? You just didn't have the book side of things. And I, fortunately, if you're in the military, fortunately that the military does give you the book side of things, to the classroom side of things, where they teach you the theories of electricity, theories of hydraulic systems. And sometimes I have to be reminded, because if you're the type who continues to learn about the aircraft, if you just, there's still books, um, how, especially the manufacturer will create for you to understand the theory of operation, right? I know F-16 planes, when I was coming up, is they were very good about theory option. It was precise. So if you want to learn about theory options of the aircraft that you're working on, a lot of times the manufacturers will um, provide that information for you. And when I went to the reserves in my last year of the air of learning about TF-34s, which is essentially the CF-34 engines, GE created a theory of operation, and it was really good. And at the time, I couldn't touch aircraft until I got to tech school. And so what did I do to learn about the aircraft, right? So what I ended up doing was I ended up learning the theory of operation from GE's manuals. And it does this and X, Y, and Z, and blah, blah, blah. Lube does this, and this is what these terms are, or this is what these parts are. Once you learn the theory of operation, it helps you understand what worked and what didn't work. And then now you can narrow it down. Just to be very simple, right? Just to the TLDR of it, right? Is if something didn't happen, you know where to start. So all you can cancel out a bunch of stuff that didn't happen until you can get to the point where it didn't happen. And um, so we in the military do get the book side. Don't some of these academia guys, they want you to get a degree and all that stuff like that, and that's great if that's what you want. And if I will not accept I don't like to accept students who that's their plan. But the colleges they're savage. They will take anybody, and it's whatever how they want to do business. However, I just don't like, because I'm very connected with students, or I'm very connected with somebody that has to deal with it for 2 weeks, and they'll complain. I was like, hey, I want to know the insides in the ins and outs, and I tried to hire somebody that was a aeronautical engineer. Then I find out they really don't want to know because this guy, the instructor, will go to the details. He goes deep. He goes deeper than some of the what the books in the FAA are. So then I find out students don't like that either. So you got to find the balance. And I just ended up. I was like, you know what? What I'm going to do is not let's we're gonna find the balance. However, we're still gonna go with our mission. We're gonna give you the shortcut. We're gonna get you what you need, and and then push you out. And if that's something you not need, probably you shouldn't be looking into fast tracks, because they're gonna push you, test you. They're going to to teach you how to test, teach you the questions and the answers. But not, going over basics is going to be really good. And we've learned from our own experience that teaching people the concepts really helps, and piecing things together when they don't understand the questions. And then when they go meet the DME, they're gonna go over concepts, uh, and that helps them. So don't be afraid to use your experience. And, that's super valuable. Companies value it, and when you go into these testings, things are going to be pieced together. Is going to make a lot of these systems make sense because you have similar concepts to your the aircraft that you worked on, and that is an option. Is for you to go to a college, and that's fine. But what colleges won't tell you a lot of times is that there's a fast track option, and I almost got into that. Um, I almost got sold on that because I didn't hear about the fast track stuff, and I am the type that likes. I've learned from experience that I need to get information from everywhere, right? I need to gather information. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, but then I can sort out, okay, what type of person I am, who I am, what's my goals, X, Y, and Z, right? I didn't want to go back to school, and what I wanted to do was just get my license so I can go work for Lockheed. That was a plan. That was a plan from day one. That was my goal, right? So um, now what I want to do is help you make sure that you know what your goals are, what you want, right? So if you just want to get your A&P, get it, because that A&P allows you to continue to learn. If you're the type that wants to sit in class and because you want to get your GI Bill, you want to think about more what you want to do later on, or you have certain type of goals that maybe requires not wrenching for a couple more years, then maybe that route's good for you, right? But getting a degree is I'm not saying it's bad. It's just um, people's goals are different. So I want to make sure that you make those type of goals and you have options. Like I was having a conversation with a friend, and she's going through, uh, she's going through a challenging moment in her life that she's trying to get her finances correct, and that people are swaying her here and there, and that's fine. Meet with them, meet maybe a couple more people, have a couple more options of financial advisors, and then figure out which one works and which aligns with your goals. That's super important, and the results that you want. So that's important. Okay. Same thing here. Go to talk to me. See if fast track works for you. See if fast track works for you online, and if it doesn't in person, that's great. You already know that. But all these things do come at a cost. So just think about that. If you want to go to a 2 year school or 18-month school, go ahead, knock that out. Okay. So, or if there's a certain company you work for, make sure you have all those options. Talk to all the recruiters. Don't even talk to just recruiters. Talk to the director of maintenance, because that's going to be the guy who's going to be interviewing you, and you probably be working under. So, and that should be another video. I need to make that video actually. But anyways, do you need an A&P? No. That's um, but if you want to be in commercial side of things, you still don't need it. However, you're going to be very limited in your upward mobility in the company, right? So if you're trying to do big things, you're trying to be the director of maintenance, that's where your experience comes in, and plus an A&P. I was just looking at a job board right now, and it says for somebody to get an A&P position or a line maintenance supervisor or a director of maintenance position, you need to have an A&P. Straight out, that's what they said. So make sure that we work on that, especially if you're still in the military. Get that out, knock that out, because um, um, it's gonna be the best investment, the very best investment if you're gonna be in aviation maintenance. Okay, hands down, over a degree, over anything else. So that's I want to establish that. Maybe okay, I'll just put that as in my opinion. That's your best investment, and I think 99% of aviation maintenance industry will tell you the same thing. If you want to go into aviation maintenance and commercial side, getting your A&P is going to give you a lot more upward mobility, a lot better positions. And let me tell you, they are looking for people with experience. They're looking for people in the military, and especially they get it out because they get benefits. And if you didn't know that before, as a company, you do get benefits. You get um, certain tax credits that would help you or go towards hiring that military technician. And there's a time frame, there's a timeline to when to hire them. So get them as they're hot, get them there before they're spoiled by other companies. And there's a lot of great maintenance teams out there. I'm not saying that there isn't, but and there's some bad ones. But my experience is there's a lot of good ones out there. Okay, so um, if you spend years in the military and everybody's saying you're getting A&P, you don't need to. But those contracts last for a couple of years, 2 3 years. I've seen it over and over in the military. I've experienced that. I just was lucky that I read the tea leaves correctly way in advance, and I moved on. So, uh, and I told everybody, I tried to help everybody, but they didn't want to listen. Uh, I'll go into story time right now. Is there was a contract that I already knew a year in advance because my roommate, there's that thing that always says rumors and stuff like that. And one of my biggest key predictors of, let's say, a rumor when it comes to aviation maintenance world is where is the money being allocated, right? So on a base, talking to the resource advisor is your RA. He's gonna know about those type of things. I was like, hey, what kind of programs are going on? Hey, we're gonna stand up a new unit here with active duty guys, right? And um, when that's going on, you already know that that's they already made it. The commander or whoever is in charge of that already made a decision. They're allocating money towards it. So um, I mean, yeah, plans change. A commander might change his mind or whatever the case may be. But the regulations, a politicians, might change their mind. A senator might change their mind. Whatever the case may be, something changes, and it just they do a 360. But most times, they want something, it's gonna happen. And I was, talking to a friend who is a resource advisor, and he's already accepted all these funds and helping them set up a new unit. And the company wasn't saying nothing even when it was past negotiating. So I was like, "Yep, that's my trigger. That's And a year later, I was trying to tell guys, hey, get your A&P, and I can see that that could be a conflict of interest because I'm starting up an A&P. I'm telling them to start an A&P, and which is fine. I understand that part. I wasn't upset. And then when the announcement happened, these guys dispersed. They were all over the place looking for um, looking for jobs. And when they were looking for jobs, they were contacting me like the day of the announcement while they're still leaving the when they were leaving the meeting. They were calling me. I was like, hey, I need this done, and I was helping them get the funds. And unfortunately, these companies that they hired them was like, yeah, yeah, we can take you on without your A&P. And they hired them on, and they did my class. And even though they owed or made me look bad on on with the county because they got the funds, and the county told me don't do it for free for them. It was like we can cover it. So it's like all right. So I listened to the lady, and they did help them to get the funds. But the guys, as they were getting hired on, they were told that they didn't need the A&P. And then a year later, after that, once they got hired on, they're like, you know what? I'm tired of doing the A&P's job. Let me get that A&P. And then they restarted everything, got their A&P. And, most of those guys that attended the class, ended up getting their A&P. And then later on, Some of them let their time expire with some of the tests that they take, and went back and knocked out their A&P. So I would say that it, even though they might not need an A&P, it would definitely help you if, especially in a position where it's kind of limited and they're trying to rack and stack, who's a good fit. And that A&P will definitely help you out a lot, right? Because you become a little more versatile. It's like, what if they put you in a position where it's usually, and I've seen this, a civilian job, and some aircraft that you work on or you're working under have you under, or have under you, is maybe some parts of it is in FAA. Like I know some helicopters or some radio equipment. They need you to sign it off to return it back to service. Little things like that. It's kind of weird. Like they need credentials, certifications, and you just become a little more versatile. So, use those funds from the military, or, make that investment to get your A&P, get your degree too. I wouldn't, if you're in the military and they're paying for it, get you that degree. And even though that I'm not, I have my own business, and, I'm still want to pursue it, right? Because, just to be, again, becoming more versatile. So that's one of my things to do later today, is contact and get back into these project management courses, right? So to get my degree in that. Um, so that's my 2 cents on getting your credentials. It's super important. You don't need it, but it would help you a ton. It's a great investment, right? To have those, solidify your credentials, solidify your knowledge, because that gives them that measuring stick, right? Right? Like, how much do you know about aviation maintenance? And an A&P helps you solidify that as well. So you still get paid really well, but you just don't want to get caught up on those contracts, 2 3 years of good, and then you have to switch again, or a commander might switch it and says, you know what, these guys are garbage, and I don't like them. So what I want to do is move on from them, and then we're going to put an active duty, unit here. I've seen it happen. I've seen it a couple of times before that too, and these guys last a couple of years and they move on. And it's not so much, and I've heard this too. Like, even when I was working in phase, like, man, contractors suck, blah blah blah. And a lot of times it's not the technicians themselves. Sometimes it's just a politics, really, which really sucks. Uh, I worked for DynCorp soon after I left the military, and I had a great experience. The guys are freaking amazing. I love the guys. The uh, you know, the guys I worked with is just regular, like, active duty stuff. So it was cool, and they paid really well. And what I wanted to do was, work on A10s at the time. It was their last year and some, like, year and a half of that. And what I the stuff that I ran into was, um, I couldn't do sheet metal work. I didn't have this huge knowledge of sheet metal, but there was like simple things I couldn't do. I remember my first encounter was I wanted to take out a stuck screw, and I was told not to because of whatever union regulations that they were under. We couldn't do it, so we had to call them out and do it instead of just fixing the problem right on the spot. Which, I can see that was my first exposure to unions. It's kind of like when you're 15 years old and you get your first paycheck and you realize how much taxes they take out. You're like, what the hell? You're like, it just changed your whole world. And then, and that was one of those moments where how things can change. Like, it just transformed me into, like, why is union these in place? I was like, yeah, they protect it, but do they? Because you, the companies are not staying a long time because of these inefficiencies. So, it's probably just better to be efficient and be helpful, be a well-rounded mechanic, so you can do all these things. That's what I think. But anyways, I'll get off my high horse on that. And if I'm gonna be having these daily things, 10 o'clock, 10:30 meetings talking about this. Tomorrow I'm gonna have my Q&A sections by how to start your A&P. I'll post that, and that way you guys can answer get your answers to these questions you may have. And I'm here to help, guys. So have a good day. Please share, comment below if you need help yourself. Just reach out to me on a comment or DM me. Glad to schedule something and come up with a plan. Okay. Have a good night. Take care.